There we go.
Good evening. Welcome to the April 23rd meeting of Daniel Boone Area School District. If you'd all rise and pledge the flag, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get the roll call, I was talking to Mr. Harris. I had contemplated having a moment of silence for Maverick, our student who lost at middle school, but seeing as we're out here and not at our regular facility and there's not much public here, if it's okay with the rest of the board, I figured we'd wait till we're back at our next meeting to do that. Sure. If that makes sense. Okay. Mr. Wolf, roll call, please.
Ms. Albright?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Durso? Mr. Strobel?
Here.
Mr. B. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Wolf here. Mr. J. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Here.
You have quorum, 9,
Very good.
8 of us.
If there are any comments from our public, your procedures for participation are located on the blue cover. There was an agenda edit at your table, but we're not actually going to be doing that agenda edit, so you can ignore that. That will be on the next meeting to go over. Yeah. There will be an executive session following this to discuss some negotiations and personnel items. Okay. Our consent agenda under 7A through S. Do I have a motion for that, please?
I would like to make a motion for the consent agenda except S5.
Okay, so that would be, we'd like us to pull out S5 policy 318, penalties for tardiness. That elusive policy, that kind of nebulous. All right, we can do that. Is there a second for, so Mr. B. Scott seconds, Ms. Olson made the motion for items 7A through S, less item S5. All those in favor? Or actually, aye, there you go, good enough. All right, so can we, now do we want to, I'll ask you, you want to table S5 or do you want to bring it up as a separate vote?
I will leave that to someone who has a stronger opinion than I do.
Well, our policy chairman is sitting to my right.
Correct.
So,
J. Scott.
We all agreed on that before.
Well,
We were gonna take it out.
I mean, I'm not sure. You're not happy with it.
Well-
Yeah, well, I don't think it's necessary to have a specific penalty for tardiness for employees.
Well,
Yeah, but
the whole-
opinion was that it was meaningless, so there was nothing there.
yeah, I mean, but the policy as it's written is basically says that administration will handle the policy regarding tardiness. And that was the. So I mean, that's all.
well, then I'll
I mean, if we, I mean, just as a, like for future reference, if we don't want a policy in place at all, then we should recommend to not put it to the board. And
I thought that's what we had done.
I thought we had just agreed that left it alone because it basically, the policy was that administration would handle it as they see
Which
fit.
they would anyway. If somebody's habitually tardy, they would.
And there isn't a similar policy right now, correct? And there hasn't been for 50 years. I mean, is there anything that we couldn't have handled just the way we did yesterday by having that policy tomorrow?
It's not my decision, it's the team's decision, that's
I
why,
got it, I understand.
I mean,
Yeah, I think we had some confusion. I thought it was going to be full as well.
So, I mean, we could bring it up to
If you'd
vote.
like to vote for
We
it,
could
everybody
we
can
could
vote
send
how
it
they
we
feel.
could send it back to policy review.
Do we just vote on it?
We can vote on it.
All right. I have a motion for S5.
I'll make that motion.
So second, please.
Second.
So Mrs. Olson and Mrs. Albright second. Roll call vote, I guess, Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott,
Yes.
Miss Olson,
No.
Miss Albright,
No.
Mr. Rathke.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-3.
You know, I would lay blame on the committee chair.
I'm fully okay with taking blame. I
I can't find any text. I'd like to see the exact wording. So do we can't get rid of a policy if it's on the list, we have to have a policy?
no,
Should
we
policy have a
can't.
policy?
It was on the, what's confusing to me is if we thought it was pulled, then we should have said so when it went through first reading.
Right.
I said something at the last meeting. And
Yeah,
I said something at the last policy meeting, and I said something at the last
See,
committee of the whole meeting. But that doesn't, just because I said it, doesn't mean it happens.
Yeah,
you know?
at the committee of the whole, I thought it was, the understanding that the administration handles it anyway. So,
That's
I mean, it's-
all the
it-
policy
it-
says is that the
right.
administration handles.
Because when I saw it, I said, well, there's no penalty here. And they said, well, it's,
I just don't like the concept of having a policy. That's policy. But it is policy. I mean, it's happening. All right.
Well,
At the
just,
same time, it's covered by 10 other ways that you can cover that. It doesn't need to have its own policy, but.
okay.
next time we come across one of those, we'll ignore it or decline it or whatever we want to do. Sure.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item 8, personnel consent items. We have items 8A through B. 8A through B3. Do I have a motion for that?
motion for 8A through
B.
through 8,
8AB.
8A through
B.
all, yeah, through B. 8, from total A to A
Yep.
and B. Sorry.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. J. Scott. Any comments, questions, concerns on those items? If not, you can read your prepared speech.
For the items of personnel consent agenda, items 8A through 8B will be adopted unless I hear an objection. Motion passes.
Okay, we have, under finance, we have A through G. We can take them all at one or individually if someone so desires. Yeah. Do I have a motion for any of them or all of them?
Motion for 9A through G.
Second.
Mr. Wolf, seconded by Mrs. Olson. Discussion. So I don't think it says it here exactly, but I think the way it's phrased, it's supposed to be, so the volleyball teams are paying for that piece of equipment, correct? I thought that's what I read. I asked that question. I think that's how it came across by Mr. Schmidt. It's a little vague in here, but that's what I was told that they are.
But it does the jigs and the spikes and everything. you
Yeah.
asked.
So that is correct, yes? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Any other questions here? Not, need a roll call for that, Mr. Subers?
Yes.
Yeah, roll call vote, Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mr. B. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
And under personnel, we have items A through C.
Make a motion for items
Oh, is that what that is?
10A through, I believe it's C1A only, is that correct?
Yeah, so we are, the edit was actually to delete B and C, so that,
Yes, so to.
yes, so,
To
yes,
10A
correct.
through 10C1A.
correct. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Mrs. Olson and Ms. Albright, thank you. Any comments or questions on these? See, we have actually less than I expected of folks who won't make it through the end of the school year, teacher-wise, that have some vacations probably already scheduled.
They're aides.
AIDS, okay. Yeah, but Barb Young's taking unpaid leave, right? Roll call vote, Mr. Wolf?
Yes, Mr. Rathgeb. Mr. B. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf, yes. Mr. J. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Olson.
Yes.
Ms. Albright.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, no old business. Any new business? I do have one item, if nobody else. So just bringing this up for discussion, and maybe Mr. Strobel can throw some light on this more than I can. But after our presentation by Mr. Thompson on the Birdsboro Center, we had a brief talk. I question if some of his findings were a little over the top. I don't believe he realized Mr. Strobel had such knowledge of masonry. So I'm not sure. So I'm just bringing it up for discussion. I just want to make sure that Mr. Thompson was giving us a straight up and up report, not beyond what it.
I don't think when you give a report like that, it's a matter of opinion. And so when I look at that, and I had years of commercial masonry business experience, and I just think that you have a water issue. So the first, I think you can take steps of remedies versus a massive remedy. And so I think the steps of remedy would be to put leak holes in because they're obviously clogged, and let the water come out. Water finds its own way, and it always does. And so whether they're road weep holes, whether they're plastic weep holes, but put the weep holes in and see if it leaks. If it stops leaking, because right now water's backed up. And so it just, to me, that's just like a pragmatic approach versus spending all the money. Can we spend part of the money and see if the problem goes away? If it doesn't go away, then you have to take the next extensive step. That's my thoughts. I was trying to share them.
And we haven't seen the
I haven't seen the
action
code
list yet. So, but I wonder if that list would have been, as opposed to now, maybe it's going to be a little more scaled back because now he realizes that there's somebody that has maybe some experience.
But most of the damage looked like it was water. Everything he brought up was rusty this, rusty that. I will say that, the wall tie comments, I thought they were making it a little bit bigger than it needed to be. As a mason, we pulled wall ties out of the back of my truck that were rusted together. We had to hammer them sometimes to get them apart. They put them in the wall rusted. And so I didn't see that as anything really shocking. And then two, that one column where they had a lentil over the top, I asked them, was it free floating lentil or was it part of the structure? It was free floating. And I've never seen a lentil put in where you don't pull that core, ever. It's just part of what you do. And so I didn't understand the comment that, oh, that was filled improperly. I've never seen one not filled. We were, I don't know who I was standing next to, but in the one area there, I said, I wonder if those jams are filled. I know they're filled. They have to be. It's part of code.
Yeah. So
again, they made a change to code. It's been a long time, probably about 25 to 28 years since I've done that kind of work. But I don't think so. So I question those things, not to prove them wrong or anything like that.
no, but my concern is, are we getting a true independent? So our architect of record is supposed to be giving us unbiased, independent information as opposed to
I think he gave you an accurate description of some of the stuff, except for like
how to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, when,
Well, that's what's becoming, right? That was,
I
that was.
don't think the rusty wall ties were part of it because it was water. They're rusty when they put them in the wall, so, and if they're close to the edge of the wall, which they can be sometimes, you're gonna bleed rust through them, because there's a little bit of water's gonna permeate cement, it always will. So some of those comments kind of made my red flags go up a little bit, but when they give the proposal, I think it may be a prudent opportunity for us to say, can we do this in stages? Because I heard 80% or 90% of what he was talking about was water was the issue.
I agree with that.
I wasn't trying to go against him. Right?
No, I just, kind of make sure we're getting unbiased, that's what we're paying for. You know.
Yeah, it's hard to, you have that experience. It's hard for a lot of us, to relate to something like that. Because for me, when I hear an expert, like an architect or a lawyer, the longer they talk, the more expensive the solution's going to be. So it's.
Is he providing a written report? He is providing a written report.
We have it. We have a written
Oh,
report.
you do have the written report?
Well, we don't have the solutions part,
We
right?
have the solution.
Yeah, we're
We have
gonna
the
find out
written
on-
You
report.
have the findings.
Yeah, findings.
When do we find that out? Next month?
The third is when
And some of
we're.
those findings, I think, personally, it's my opinion, we put wall ties on a wall and you ran the brick up, and when you got to a certain level, you bent them over. Sometimes they were close to the edge, and sometimes they were far back. You never cut them off. And so if they were close to the edge, which they're bleeding, he was saying that's because of the water behind the brick. I disagree with that finding, that's all. I'm not, it's
We
close to the
appreciate
edge,
it.
they're already rusty. So, again, there's just a couple of those things. There was a jam in there that wasn't filled, and he made comment about, or it was filled. And so he made a big comment about how it shouldn't be filled. I'm like, they're always filled. I mean, I've never seen them not filled, because there was an overhead lentil that caused, it was a bearing over an opening, so you have to fill them. And I just, again, I might be, maybe that, because the building was separated with, it looked to me like there was angle iron separating different levels of the floors, and maybe that caused it not to need it. I don't know, but I've never seen them not. So I question those things, not trying to make you feel bad or wrong, but I didn't feel comfortable with it. And then the last was all the water. There's no weep holes, so it's going to hold water. Any water that gets inside that building is going to go somewhere else. We know water's going to find a way out somewhere, so it found its way back in instead of out. So all the flashing's there. So I'm thinking that I've done it before. We've gone in and we put weep holes in buildings.
And there's a drainage plane or some type they've established.
Yeah, there's
some type
flashing
of
behind it.
Okay.
Flashing. There's a sill plate there and flashing.
Didn't they cover some of the weep holes that were there?
Well, that one, some of the repairs covered the weep holes exactly. But again, just thought I'd throw it out there.
Well, it sounds like wait and see where you get on the proposal,
On the
right?
proposal, right?
Yeah, May 3rd is, we asked Mr. Thompson to give us his report out, and whether, what we could choose to do as far as include in the budget, that we'll have to make some of those decisions, or depending on what the cost is.
I was happy nothing was structural. It's all sound. The stuff that's breaking is just because it's water got behind it and it froze it, so it just needs to be replaced.
To his point, just asking, but who does prove that, like who's our backup expert that, to his point about how there's maybe some questions about it, but who does investigate that?
He's our, well, I mean, number one, he's your consultant. I mean, so you question him, and you should be able to question him, and he should be able to answer those questions and provide whatever supporting authority.
Okay.
If it's a code issue or whatever else, he should readily do that. I mean, it should not be a problem.
I don't think that he wouldn't. I think that he probably would have.
And this is the masonry contractor's report, I guess, I'm
Yes.
assuming. And they're not performing the work, are they?
Just a remedial work to put,
Oh,
Just
they
to
disturb.
restore the.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that they would be
Right,
a
right,
contractor
yeah,
for it, right?
They were required to, I meant they're not doing the remediation. So really, I mean, in theory, there's no incentive for them to recommend more than what is necessary.
Right.
I would imagine they could bid on that, right? I mean, that.
I would not let the.
I didn't get the impression there was subterfuge. I just know that sometimes if you're going to make recommendation, you cover all your bases at one time. So
Right.
as I'm saying, as a board, we're going to make that decision. you might want to consider doing it in steps.
And he'll be available for more questions.
Any other new business?
I wouldn't have bring this up, except that we got a kind of short meeting, but this past week, I attended the TSA conference with the kids. And Technology Students Association, it's in Seven Springs, takes place over 3 school days and a Saturday. Every year, there's the state competition, and I just wanted to point out that we had at the middle school, we had 31 top 10 finishing teams and individuals, and 11 for second and third. They're going to be eligible to go to nationals, which I believe is in Georgia this year. And at the high school, we had 7 top 10 place finishers and 1 third place, which Brianna McNamara is going to be eligible to go to nationals, excuse me. And I'm especially proud of the high schoolers, especially because we only had 9 students participating this year because it happened the same weekend as the prom. And so we only had 9 of them, but we still had 7 for top 10 finishers. So
Obviously, they're the serious ones that went out there. So, yeah,
although
yeah.
one of our seniors, she is actually a state office holder with the TSA, is very dedicated to TSA. She did her hair on the bus on the way back, and still managed to make it to the prom.
Okay.
So.
And you and Mr. Olson judge or coach?
We judge,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
we
Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
The high school is a much smaller group on any given year. So now that we don't have any middle schoolers, we no longer get conscripted to chaperone. We only have to judge. So, but I really believe in the program. They have everything from children's stories to photography to video game design to manufacturing electronics to woodworking. They biomedical. They kind of run the gamut. There are 45 competitions at the high school and 45 competitions at the middle school that they do. They really run the gamut. I really believe in the program, and I'm glad we have such a strong showing from our kids. So.
Now, will they? Because typically don't we get a request for nationals?
Yeah, we just came back Saturday.
Yeah. So, but that should be
I
coming.
would say,
yeah.
and I'm assuming that they'll be coming to see. Every other year they've come to see us at the board, so I'm assuming we'll do that sometime in May. So you'll get to see them again, but I just wanted to say something because it was fresh in my mind.
Ms. Olson, in your opinion, how many kids from the high school didn't go because the conflict with prom?
Normally, a normal year, we have 20 kids from the high school. There's also the situation where, Mr. Oram is what had to step away from the advisorship in the middle of the year, and so some of those where he has special expertise like architectural design and video games and webmaster and those kind of things, the kids didn't have quite as much direction. Mrs. Sweet actually has some good ideas for how to get that expertise in with the kids next year that she talked to me on the way home. So she has some really good ideas for the program.
Any other new business? Not? Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion.